Why not push the International Space Station to a high orbit instead of deorbiting it? Will we ever send a probe to another star? Is quantum computing more promising than AI advances? And in Q&A Plus, how close are we to a technological singularity? All this and more in this question show. It's time for the question show. Your questions, my answers, as always, wherever you are across my channel. If a question pops in your brain, just write it down. I'll gather them up and I will answer them here. All right, let's get into the questions. The Linthus. What would be the challenges, advantages, and consequences of pushing the International Space Station into a higher orbit instead of deorbiting it when it gets retired? This is a very tricky subject because there are a lot of moving pieces here. So as probably everybody knows, NASA is planning on deorbiting the International Space Station by around 2030. And the Russians may disconnect their section of the space station before then. There are some private partners that may attach sort of private modules to the International Space Station, and then those might be detached before the station is dropped into the ocean. And so parts of the space station might survive after 2030, but we'll just go with this sort of the baseline expectation that around 2030 there's going to be a tug from SpaceX launched to dock with the space station. It's going to fire its engines and it's going to drop the entire station through the atmosphere and drop it into Point Nemo, the farthest place from anywhere in the Pacific Ocean, to minimize the chance that anyone's going to get hit, because it will survive. Like, chunks of the space station will absolutely survive, make it through the atmosphere, crashed into the ocean. And so you're saying, like, oh, like, what a shame. And you're exactly right. It is a giant shame that this hundreds of billions of dollars, or definitely more than $100 billion piece of equipment, probably the most complicated machine that humanity has ever built, the West's only operational space stations, like the Chinese have theirs, but once the International Space Station is gone, only the Chinese will have a permanent presence in low Earth orbit. That sucks. So why not keep it? And there's a couple of issues. So the first thing is that NASA is not giving the budget. So I'm kind of torn to think of a really good analogy, but let's say you're staying in a really nice apartment and you can't afford the rent anymore. And someone's like, well, why don't you just stay there? Well, like, I can't. Like, why don't you just stay? Well, because I don't have the money. Yeah, but you just stay. Well, you know, like, it's not allowed. So the problem is that the budget for NASA is being reallocated to other priorities. The White House has put its priorities, Congress has made its priorities, and the plans are sending humans to the moon, sending some missions to Mars. There's a bunch of other stuff that's in the works, and it does not include the billions of dollars it costs every year to maintain the International Space Station. That's sort of like the big thing. It's just like nobody is willing to pay for the cost to keep it operational. So now what you're saying is, well, why don't we just raise the orbit? And that is absolutely possible. You know, the tug that is going to fire its engines and lower the space station's orbit could fire in the opposite direction and raise the space station's orbit. In fact, the space station raises its orbit all the time. There are regular cargo vessels that dock with it, deliver more propellant. The cargo vessels can help raise its altitude. The station itself can raise its altitude. Like, this is a maneuver that has been done for a long time. But again, if there's no budget being put into it, then these cargo vessels will no longer deliver propellant to the station, that this process will end. And so it's going to go. So like, that's like, the answer is always money. But there are a couple of other issues, which is that, you know, it's an old machine. And that a lot of the time spent by the astronauts when they're on board the station is maintaining it, swapping out parts, fixing the things that are breaking, and just keeping this machine going. You know, it's not just a house that gets better with time. It's a 30-year-old piece of flying machinery that has all of these subcomponents, and they're all working all the time. Things that circulate air and heat and pressure, and all of this stuff is going on nonstop. There's pumps. There's all of the solar panels, there's the radiators, airlocks, like just scientific equipment. So much is going on in this thing, and it all requires maintenance, and maintenance requires money, and there is no money. So I think, you know, in my perfect world, they would maintain the International Space Station. They would raise its orbit, and then they would just add on to it, just bit by bit by bit. Like, you've got this place, it's permanent. and you can just keep adding new modules to it. You can drop other modules off of it. The space station is more like the ship of Theseus, where it is this place in space where stuff happens. And whenever you want to launch a new part to it, you've got this established base that you can do that. Launch a new module that has the most modern technology. Then by all means, ditch an old module that is just so cranky and you're having to carry its weight all the time. Drop it into the ocean. Keep going. So I think if there was unlimited money, or if there was even adequate money, that would be the solution. You constantly have this nice, stable, beachhead in orbit that you can continually use. Because as soon as the station comes down, then there is no safe place that you can go and build up again. You're going to have to launch an entirely new station to begin again. And, if you've ever been through this process, like once you don't have a place you can work from, it's so much harder. So yeah, the right move is to continue funding the station, to sort of imagine this as this forever station, this ship of Theseus, just swap out the parts forever. And 1,000 years from now, the bits and pieces of the International Space Station will be embedded within this larger station that is just to maintain this permanent presence in orbit. Zach Diecast Mansour, I know we'll never send a generational spaceship of people to another star anytime soon, but do you think we'll send a generational probe to one that multiple generations track to another star? First, never say never. The future of humanity, we hope, is going to be long, and there will be interesting technologies that will be developed, and that we have no idea what future generations will accomplish. And so this idea of a generation ship, this is, because it takes so long for us to be able to get to another star system, people said, well, why don't you instead just take the time, and instead of trying to complete the journey in a ridiculously short amount of time, instead send a generation ship, something where people live, or people are born, they live, they die. They're born, they live, they die, multiple generations for a ship to reach another star system. And this is a trope in science fiction. I think in the Orville they found a generation ship, and of course that highlights the downside of the generation ship, which is that future technology may be able to get you to your destination faster than the generation ship can go. And so wouldn't that just be sad that you are the third generation, you've been living, your family has been surviving, trying to get through day to day as the technology is failing. And then, a brand new sleek spaceship from Earth shows up and says, hey, do you guys need a ride? We're off to Alpha Centauri. Like, oh, why did we even do this? Why are we even here? That is always the challenge. But what you're describing is when we send a generational probe that has multiple generations tracked to another star, you're describing a von Neumann probe. You're describing a self-replicating robot probe. Also a trope in science fiction. My favorite of this is We're Legion, I Am Bob, which talks about a guy who gets turned into a von Neumann probe. I won't say anything more, except that it's one of the best sci-fi book series about this kind of thing I've ever read. It's super entertaining. So, will we do this? Well, the technology to create a self-replicating robot probe, although is beyond our capability today, a lot of the pieces are coming together pretty quickly. We are developing better examples of harvesting materials out of rock and regolith and things like that. And 3D printing is coming along, getting better and better. We can 3D print in so many different materials now: titanium, steel, ceramics, glass, plastics. Like, it's kind of amazing. And even people are starting to envision ways that we can 3D print or produce electronics in space out of raw materials. So although it's beyond us today, a lot of people are like, that will never happen. It's impossible. I don't think it's impossible, right? It's just a very difficult engineering challenge, but it's kind of amazing what we will be able to accomplish. And once we are able to build a self-replicating robot probe and we send it off to another star system, and maybe it takes it a couple hundred years to get to the nearest star system, and then it arrives, builds copies of itself, those go to another star system, within a few million years, we will have mapped out the entire galaxy. And of course, this is the Fermi paradox, which is that if this is a thing that we're going to do, right? And if even dumb rocks like Oumuamua or Borisov or 3I Atlas, if just ice and rock can cross the gulf between star systems, shouldn't we be able to do this? Shouldn't smart rocks be able to make this journey as well? And so it feels this kind of inevitability. And so that if this is something that we will do, then we would expect that other advanced civilizations, the ones that started a billion years before us, will have already done this as well. And yet, when we look out into the cosmos, we do not see any examples of these self-replicating robot probes. So either it is truly impossible and no one can ever, not ever, make a copy, or we're alone in the universe, or there's something else we just don't understand. It's time to shout out all the new $5 patrons and above. Evan Clauda, Brian Rodriguez, Korolev, Bill Christian, Craig Landon, John Gallant, Richard Stambach, and Fred Manzella. Join the club at patreon.com/universe today. Clive Warren, people keep going on about AGI, but won't quantum computing be more powerful? Quantum computing is just different. So the kinds of things that a quantum computer is good for is very specific kinds of computing challenges. And so when you talk about sort of more powerful, the thing that advanced AI is going to be doing is essentially being able to solve problems, to direct activity towards a goal. And however you get there, whether it's just traditional silicon or whether you're able to run algorithms that get you in that direction using quantum computing, it all just depends on, can you sort of collapse the possible futures down to the point that you can actually achieve some kind of outcome. And that is what sort of all artificial intelligence is moving towards, is being able to kind of accomplish and achieve outcomes in the universe that we find ourselves in. We think about us as people, right? You have a plan, you have a goal, you have a thing you want to get accomplished. You have agentic behavior. And whether you do that in the sort of more traditional silicon way or whether you do it with quantum computers, there was a really great book that just keeps getting more accurate over time. It's called The Age of Spiritual Machines. It was written by Ray Kurzweil, in the 90s. And he predicted with just stunning accuracy today. He predicts that there would be a computer with the sort of capability of a human mind, but on a supercomputer running by about 2029. And that by 2039, everybody will have these on their desktop. And then by 2049, everyone's desktop will run a mind that is 1,000 times smarter than a human being. And he didn't really think too deeply about what are the philosophical implications of a mind that is 1,000 times smarter than a human being. Would it still want us around? Right? Would it treat us the way we treat ants or chimpanzees or anything? Right? But I do recommend read that book. He's not sure where the computing is going to come from. He talks about Moore's law and says, he imagines there would be reversible computing. So right now, computing produces a lot of heat, but in theory, you can sort of run all of your circuits and then you can sort of extract the energy and run your circuits in reverse and not have to produce a lot of heat. He imagines 3D substrate, because right now all the chips run in 2 dimensions, but he imagines they could run in 3 dimensions. And he imagined quantum computing and reversible quantum computing. So imagine all these ideas. Well, turns out all we needed to do is just keep shrinking the size of the circuits to the place we find ourselves today. And we are approaching the predictions that Ray Kurzweil made 30 years ago. And his math was very simple. He just said, I look at the curve and then I just extrapolate the curve. And this is when on the curve, weird stuff is going to happen. So it's a great book. Did you know you can watch the same video with no ads and get a bonus question over on Patreon completely for free? We call it Q&A Plus. This week's bonus question: how close are we to a technological singularity? I'll put a link in the show notes. All right, those are all the questions that we had this episode. Thank you everyone who asked your questions into the YouTube comments, everybody who joined me for the live show. I'm going to talk about how we are doing, how your support has helped Universe today. But first, I'd like to thank our patrons. Thanks to Abe Kingston, Andrea Pedretti, Brian Bodie, Caradwin, Chuck Hawkins, Commander Balak, Dark Finga, David Giltonan, David Matz, Enthrall Reading and Math for Toddlers, Evan.pro, James Clark, Jeremy Maddern, Jim Burke, Marcel Smith, Mike Russell, NASA Ocean Guy, Nordspace, OneSetForAnimals.org. Please follow my nephew at VBrick6994, Rankaidu, Richard Williams, Sean Sargent, Stephen Fonley Munley, Team 49, Telescopes Canada, Vlad Shiplin, and Wolfgang Klotz, who support us at the Master of the Universe level, and all our patrons. All your support means the universe to us. Oh, Zelda Borg dropped off that list, and so I guess got impatient or had too much fun getting me to say different names. And first, those are the $100 patrons who I read their names out at the end of every episode. And that is a lot of money. And I am blown away by that level of support. The people think that the work we're doing at Universe Today is so valuable that they're giving us $100 a month. My imposter syndrome is off the charts for that level of support. But then you see names like Telescopes Canada or Nordspace. Like, those are companies who are looking to put their name in front of the tens of thousands of people who watch our videos, the hundreds of thousands of people who listen to our podcasts, the 10 million plus page views that we put on the Universe Today website. And then it kind of makes sense. Like, we don't do VPN sponsors. I'm not going to pitch a mobile game, but I will say your name of your company or encourage people to follow your nephew at the end of every episode of the videos that we do. And for some people, I think that's going to worth it. So if you want to sponsor our work, you've got a great venue to be able to do that for only $100 a month. Now, I also want to let you know that, it's been about 15 months since I put out the big call for you, the audience, to help us run Universe Today. That up until March 2025, Universe Today was mostly funded by advertising and sponsorships. But I could see the writing on the wall that there was much less traffic going to websites, that search engine optimization doesn't work anymore, that the ad networks are cutting back on the amount that they're funding, that model of running a company where it's sponsored by advertising is just untenable. And you're going to see, or you have already seen, a lot of your favorite websites that are publishing useful content that are supported by ads going under. And that was going to be the fate for Universe Today. And then 15 months ago, I put out the call and said, could you please consider joining us as a patron? And what you will get is I will remove all of the ads from everything that we do. And we did it. I removed all the ads from Universe Today. And if you go and look at the website today, there's no ads. It looks beautiful. It's super fast. There's not even JavaScript. Like, there's no cookies, there's no tracking, nothing. It's just pure content. And there's no ads in the newsletter, and there's no ads in the podcast. And it's just 100% supported by the patrons. And it's been incredible. Like, that support has continued month after month. And now all I do, I have to, I get up in the morning, think about what I'm curious about in the universe, what I think you're curious about understanding. I don't think about the needs of advertisers, of AI, of search engines, of anything. I just think about what content we're going to produce. And so it's been wonderful and amazing. And I know that the rest of the team here at Universe Today appreciates the support that you give us, and it allows me to pay everybody's salaries. And unless something really weird happens, we are now sustainable for the long term. And, I'm sure I will have to come back hat in hand and say, okay, we're starting to slip down and there's going to be shortfalls, but wow, it's incredible. And I sort of can't believe how lucky we are. And I mean, like, obviously we provide value, we work really hard, but still, it's incredible that we can kind of match this desire for the curiosity and interest in space with our desire to make this kind of stuff. And the whole system works. And we don't have to be living in this anxiety world anymore. And so I am just so at peace now, and it feels great. So thank you. All right. We'll see you next week.